Welcome, radio students, to KUBS FM, and welcome to this tutorial with just a couple things intended to get accomplished. Number one, to teach you how to start a simple recording using our recording equipment here, computer, microphone, small little mixing board, and how to appropriately gain or create effective levels or gain or volume when you are recording using a broadcast quality microphone. That's what we have right here. So let's get at it. First of all, let's introduce you to some of the equipment here. To begin with, this is the small mixing board that we are going to be using in the process here. There I am, picture in picture. You can take a look at me if you like, or you can take a look at what is on the other part of the screen. So here's your mixing board. And this is a small audio console, small audio board. In the radio industry, we refer to these as boards. Not a mixer so much, but more in the radio industry, we refer to these as boards. A board has a variety of different types of inputs. There are XLR inputs, quarter-inch inputs. Some of those quarter-inch inputs are being kind of converted from quarter-inch into RCA, but we have a variety of different inputs up here, and we have a variety of different adjustments as well. Up here, we have the ability to adjust high, medium, and low-range equalization. We also have some effects, minimal. We have panning left and right, and then we have the main potentiometer. We have line-in potentiometer up here for primary gain, and secondary level gain potentiometer as well. Potentiometer, what the heck is a potentiometer? A potentiometer is a fancy word for a device that allows you to adjust volume. In the radio industry, we refer to potentiometers as pots. I know we're in Washington, but not that type of pot. Pot is short for the word potentiometer, and in the radio industry, if you go work for a radio station, or you're going to work right here because you are a student employee at KUBS FM, that is if you're watching this and you're engaged in our program, we refer to these little volume adjuster doohickey thingamajiggers as pots. That's short or abbreviated for potentiometer. And today we are going to, I am going to attempt to display to you how we use a potentiometer, how we also use the microphone, the potentiometer, how we use the potentiometer, how we use the microphone, and how we use our tools, our voice, to create acceptable levels, volume, for recording purposes. So today we are going to use this board, we are going to use this mic, and we are also going to use a computer. There's our computer screen. Computers now do what back in the old days 10 or 12 or 15 different devices would do. This computer is going to be our recording, our editing device. We will be able to adjust tone, volume. We can put sound effects, reverb, you name it, echoes, stretch it out, shorten it up. This computer will allow us to do just about anything we want to a piece of sound or audio. And the primary program that we are going to be using for this purpose on the computer screen is Adobe Audition. As good time goes along, you will find out that there are a number of things here on this desktop that you may or may not be using during your stay and your employment here at KUBS FM. But to begin with, I will show you Adobe Audition. I'll double click and it will come up on the screen. When we want to create a recording in Adobe Audition, we go up above here to File, say we want a new one, and a new wave format box will come up on the screen. This new waveform box gives us options of changing sample rate, mono or stereo channel, and resolution as well. And basically on every recording that we will conduct here at KUBS FM for the purpose of weather, community calendar, public service announcements, promotional liners, you name it, we will use the following settings. Under sample rate, we are going to use 44-100. And I will get into the history of what all of those numbers mean at another time and at another place. But right now, just accept that we are going to use the sample rate of 44/100. We always want to record in stereo, and we are going to use a 16-bit resolution. Click OK, and we are ready to record. I'll hit the record button. So it is recording, and I will attempt here in just a moment to move me, maybe. It's not going to allow me to do that. Yeah, I'm going to move me out of the way in the picture-in-picture so that you can see the lower portion of the recording screen in Adobe Audition. And what you were looking at here is what's referred to as the levels. It is a VU meter, VU standing for volume units, and this is a meter that meters or gauges the amount of volume or gain that is being entered into our device, our recording device. Along the side here, or you will see it ranges anywhere in dBs from -71 all the way up to 0. 0 typically meaning 100% of gain or volume. We want to be cognizant of that. We want to be aware of that because we do not want a constant level beyond 100%. Otherwise, we will achieve what is called distortion and overmodulation. This volume units meter, or VU meter, allows us to judge the levels, and we want to register our levels somewhere between 70 and 95 to 100% on average. And right now, as I'm talking, it is jumping up there to -3, sometimes up to -1. That means, and it also is represented up here on the screen. You can see that the levels are larger or smaller depending on the amount of gain or volume that is being registered into Adobe Audition. And what we're looking for is somewhere between -3 to -1 on average, which would be 70 to about 95%. Modulation on our VU meter. So, up to this point, what we have accomplished is we have introduced the board. Boom, there it is. We've introduced the small audio board or console, and I have introduced the basics there. I have shown you the microphone, and I've also shown you the computer program that we use to record Adobe Audition. So opening up and starting a recording is that simple. We hit record, we talked into the microphone, we saw that the levels were registering on the VU meter, and up on the screen you can see that there's stuff up there. So if I click into that screen, let's take a look and see just exactly what it is producing. Yeah, I'm going to move me out of the way in the picture-in-picture so that you can see the lower portion of the recording screen in Adobe Audition. And what you were looking at here is what's referred to as the levels. Okay, it is so a VU meter, VU standing for volume units. There we go. And here on the board that meters, for just a moment. If you want to listen to the playback of your recording, on the board there is a pot here for the adjustment of your headphones. Well, our headphones are plugged into speaker monitors here in the studio, and to adjust the volume of those speakers, you would adjust the headphone pot here on the board. Aware of that, because we do not. So we have achieved a recording here, and we have. We have the ability here, if we want to save that, to edit it, and we'll get into editing and saving later on another occasion. But right now, we have done the very basics. We've introduced the microphone, the board, the recording software on the computer, and we have actually obtained a recording. We have captured audio into Adobe Audition. If we wanted to save it, then we would go to File, Save As, and from the desktop, if I were to go to the desktop, I would go into Production, and this is where we have the various folders where we save stuff. If we were doing weather, we would save it in the weather folder. If we were working on a community calendar announcement, it would be in the community calendar folder. Might be an ID and a liner. It might be a variety of things that would be in here. There are also student folders that will be created where you can save things as necessary. For right now, though, we really don't care. We're going to discard this folder. Say no to saving any of that. And as an introduction to creating a recording, there you go. The next step in this recording process is to become familiar enough with our tools to create an effective recording. Obviously, in the recording that I created for you last time, the levels were acceptable. We could have played them back and you would hear them well. They were strong and able to be heard. They weren't too quiet. They weren't too loud. But how did I do that? What did I do? What did I do to ensure that that recording had adequate volume, that it wasn't too loud, it wasn't too quiet, it was quality, and able to be used for broadcasting purposes? Well, let me tell you how that was done. I'm going to go back to my Adobe Audition screen, and I'm going to open File, New, 44100 Stereo 16-bit. I'm going to create a new recording, and I'm going to hit Record. I'm going to fire it off and start a new recording. You can see that as I speak, the VU meter down below is registering all the way over to roughly -3, which would be 70 to 80%. And it's being represented up here in wave format on Adobe Audition's front screen. Hello there. Now, how do I get to that point? What do I do? What are the things that must be manipulated or used to make that work and happen effectively so that I have good, strong levels that aren't too loud, that aren't too quiet, that are quality and able to be used for broadcast purposes? Well, there are three things that need to be taken into consideration when we create a recording. Number one will be just the use of my voice. Number one, I must use my tools and my instrument, my voice, appropriately. I don't want to get behind a microphone and talk timid and shyish and quiet. And at the same time, I don't want to yell into the microphone and sound mad or kind of abnormal. I want to speak in an acceptably firm and a voice that some people have referred to as your bus voice. If you're sitting in the aisle seat and you want to speak to a friend that's in the other aisle seat, you don't necessarily have to yell at them, but if you talk too quietly, they're not going to be able to hear you. So you want to speak in a conversational level that is appropriate, bold, and loud enough to be heard appropriately and correctly and acceptably. So number one, we need to manipulate our voice. It needs to be loud enough that it can be heard strongly, clearly, and appropriately, but not so quiet that it is like a whisper, and not obnoxiously loud. It needs to be a voice that is acceptable, using that voice, your toolbox, your instrument. Okay, so number one, appropriate levels are achieved by the usage, appropriate and effective usage of your voice. The second way is by appropriately using your board and the potentiometers on your board. I'm going to continue speaking, and notice that as I adjust number one pot, this potentiometer, as I adjust it down, notice what happens to the sound of my voice, whether or not you can hear me effectively. And you're not going to be able to hear me very well at all. In fact, if you look at Adobe Audition, the VU meter is way down. It's not hardly even registering into the 30s, and the wave representation on the screen is diddly squat. Now, I am going to move that potentiometer back up, and as I'm slowly moving it up, look on the computer screen and watch what happens. The VU meter starts to register more volume, and it also is representative on the screen in Adobe Audition. So, number two, the second way that I can adjust my volume is by using the potentiometer. Again, so if I put it way down too low and I'm adjusting down, it will be quiet almost to the point where you can't hear it. But I can also have too much. If I adjust my potentiometer, boom, and I have it now adjusted way up, totally up to the max, notice how in Adobe Audition, it's pegging out into the red over here. Up on my computer screen, where is it? There it is, right here. It's pegging out way over to the red, and the representation up on Adobe Audition, the screen itself, it is big, huge, chunky, blocky yuck stuff that goes way above 100%. So what I need to do, is I need to go back to this potentiometer and I need to adjust it down so that I am getting those levels at a more appropriate gain or level of somewhere between 70 and 90%. On the VU meter, you will see it is jumping somewhere between -3 and -1 dB. And up on the screen, the representation will be much more appropriate. It is not going way above that white line. It is staying between the white lines at somewhere between 75 to 95% modulation. So, in review, the number one way to adjust your volume when recording is by adjusting your voice. Okay. Number two, the second way is by adjusting the potentiometer, adjusting the levels on the board. Number three is going to be using the microphone appropriately. First, for some basic microphone fundamentals regarding this piece of equipment. This is going to be some old school information because this piece of equipment right here that we are using, this Shure broadcast quality piece of equipment microphone, it's pretty fantastic stuff. $700 to $1,000 these things cost. This is not cheap garbage that we're using. This is industry standard, high quality stuff, and you need to use it appropriately. Take care of it, and it will take care of you. Now, back in the old days, I'm just old enough to have been taught up in radio in old school fashion. We used different types of microphones that required different practices and different things that we had to consider. Some of those principles were that in the broadcast industry, you always want to work close to the microphone. That has not changed. You still want to continue to work close to the microphone. Notice that my upper lip, my nose, is touching this fuzzy thing at all times. This fuzzy thing, by the way, is referred to as a windsock. And this windsock is designed to filter the sounds coming out of your mouth and try to prevent popping P's and sizzling S's. It's supposed to filter out a lot of that yucky stuff before it gets to the core of the microphone. So, take care of this little fuzzy thing. The microphone as a total is $700 to $1,000. Replacing this little fuzzy thing, the windsock, is anywhere between $35 and $50. It is something you want to manage and take care of and protect. Now, also, I don't have a can with me right now, but normally we maintain Lysol in here. So when you come in to record, you can take the fuzzy windsock off, lightly spray it with Lysol, and then it is disinfected and you will not get the creepy crud germs from the person who was using it prior to you. So the windsock, take care of it. It's there for a purpose, and we want to be hygienic and safe as well. So occasionally lightly spray it with Lysol, let it air out, and then we should all be safe and healthy. So this aside for just a moment. But windsock is there for a purpose. Also, we always want to work very close to the microphone, tickling our nose or our upper lip, and since we are working so close to it, that's why we want to be hygienic. And this microphone is designed to work best when you're working close to it. Now, how close? How close should I work to a microphone? Well, in the old school, there was a 2-finger rule. You wanted your upper lip or your nose to be 2 finger width away from the diaphragm of the microphone. Now, this microphone is actually constructed to facilitate that rule right from the get-go without you having to do anything, and I'll show you why. Still working? Good. Okay. Now, there is a steel enclosure here that is protecting the diaphragm in there. You can kind of see it right there is basically the end, and the steel extends another 2 finger lengths beyond the diaphragm to where your mouth would be. You can use this microphone without the windsock, and it will work and function just fine. It just will not be filtering some of those yucky sounds that the windsock is designed to filter. But if I'm working right next to this microphone, this steel enclosure is automatically getting me 2 fingers away from the diaphragm inside. So it's already doing its job without me having to monitor my 2 finger length distance. If you're using a different type of microphone without the steel enclosure, you're going to have to maintain a 2 finger distance in many occasions. With that being said, again, work closely to the microphone. Windsock, make sure that it's hygienic and clean. Another thing is that we want to talk across the diaphragm, not at a 90 degree or directly into the microphone, but we want to be talking at an angle across the diaphragm. That is proper usage of the microphone as well. So this piece of equipment, this is industry standard, high quality stuff made by Shure, $700 to $1,000 each one of these. It is designed for a specific purpose and to be used in a specific way. And if you take care of it, it will help you produce high quality recordings. So through the process of watching this video, you have potentially noticed also that my head has not been moving. Let me go back to put that in there and click that up there. I stopped and I'm going to start a new wave station recording. And there it is. You can see the levels registering visually on the screen. You can also see the VU meter down towards the bottom, registering right around -3. That would be 75%-ish. If I boost up my levels just a little bit more, where I'm averaging between -3 and -1, that's between 75 and 95 or 100%, which is ideal. So we have this recording. You can see visually the waveforms on Adobe Audition's screen. And you can see that we have strong levels. So number 3, getting back to number 3. Again, you may have noticed that my head has not moved much during this entire recording tutorial. There's a reason for that. If I move my head, it will affect the levels, the quality of the sound, and the amount of sound that will be registered into this microphone, into the board, and into Adobe Audition. Here's the example. If I start moving my head to the side, notice the difference in the level of volume. If I move to this side, as I talk, the level of volume is going to change and the quality is going to change. As I move away, same deal. I move farther away, you start to get the tinny, bouncing, echoey sounds that come off of the wall, and it registers and it shows visually in Adobe Audition, and it also shows on the VU meter as well. And if you go back and listen to it, which you will have been listening to this recording while I'm conducting this tutorial, you will have noticed also that as I moved my head side to side and back and forward, it changed the quality and the level of sound or gain on the VU meter and with my recording. So it's important that you do the 3 things. Keep in mind the 3 things when recording. Number 1, use your tools, your instrument that is given to you, your voice box, your voice. Monitor that and use that effectively, number 1, and you will be able to create effective levels and sound when recording. Number 2 is to use this guy right here and effectively control the pots on this sound board. And of course, this was your pot for your microphone, primary gain, secondary gain, and your master volume as well. All 3 of those must be adjusted appropriately and accordingly to get good levels as well. So that was number 2. And number 3, of course, is the usage of this microphone thing right here. And the end result, as you are watching the levels on the screen, you will be able to see a representation using both your VU meter, right there, and of course the visual representation on Adobe Wave Station as well. Maintaining good control in all 3 of those aspects, microphone, voice, the board, in a different order of course, but if you're maintaining all 3 of those and carefully monitoring them and controlling those factors, you will have a successful recording using Adobe Audition.